So this guy walks into my office, and right away, I mean, you can see the guy's got plenty of money. You know, some people just, you can tell. Not least of all, he's dressed beautifully, and as somebody who likes a bit of nice clothing, of course I noticed that. I noticed he's really well dressed. We get chatting, and I find out that he is actually very wealthy. He's actually from a wealthy family, that he has multiple generational money. He's grown up with money. There's always been lots of money around him. And we begin talking. We begin talking about the things that he's struggling with in his life, the things that he's challenged with, and something happens. As he's talking to me, I'm beginning to think how different we are. That he's from a different world than I am. You see, I'm this guy who, you know, I grew up in poverty. I grew up with struggle. I grew up with really zero entitlement, that I wasn't sort of going to get anything. It was just get what you can and make the best of it. And this guy seems to have grown up with it all. He seems to have grown up being entitled to everything and that being fulfilled. So I'm thinking about how different we are. And then we start talking about money. Like, what is money to each of us? And I'm trying to sort of give him some examples to help him hone in on what money might be to him, what it might mean to him. And as we start talking, it's fascinating to me that I realize that lots of his beliefs about money are absolutely identical to the beliefs that I had grown up with, to beliefs that I had struggled with for years and years and years. You see, even though he'd grown up with all that money, he had this idea, this sense that money was bad, that it was somehow wrong, that he saw that people who didn't have money were more real, more authentic, more genuine, were better people than the people he'd grown up with who had money. And I would be fascinated by this, because I'd grown up with this absolute same idea. Here's him grown up in this multi-generational wealth, and I'd grown up in absolute poverty, and we had exactly the same belief. I had been trained to believe that the wealthy people were less genuine than we were. They weren't as real as we were. They weren't as caring as we were. They were fake. Whereas we, quote, poor people, people who were not as well off, well, we were the real people. And we did see them as bad. We saw them as less genuinely caring, less all of those things. How is it possible that the two of us who've grown up in these completely different environments with completely different sense of what money was, how is it even possible that we had exactly the same belief about money? I'll tell you how. When we have a primary wound about something, we have a primary belief about something, all beliefs at their basic level have a polarity. See, I grew up with no money, was told that people who had money were bad, and people who grew up in that environment very often polarize, meaning they will go, okay, that's it, I'm sick of all this poverty, and they go out and they become driven by money, absolutely driven by money. or they polarize that and they become driven away from money because they don't want to be seen as bad. Either of those polarities are real. So there's this polar response within people who grew up like I did. But it's what I came to realize from this encounter with this young man, you know, in his early 40s, was that he had exactly the same belief. That he had simply grown up with, we are wealthy, we're better. Same things we'd got about being poor, but he had it about being wealthy, that they were better. And so he had polarized and gone the other way, that it was better to not have money. And so as a result, he was constantly sabotaging himself. He was sabotaging his relationships with people who had money. And he was definitely sabotaging the family business that he was supposed to be stepping into because he had this belief system about money. Take a look at what it is that you have a deep-seated belief about and ask yourself, is your behavior in line with that belief? Is it polarized of that belief? Or have you found a way to heal that belief so that you actually have a choice? Because reaction on either sides of that polarity are not choice. In fact, you're quite powerless. And it's not until you're actually able to choose something that sits in the middle, something that's healthier, that's when you get it. So, this is Dov Baron with a family leadership tip, authentic leadership tip. Dov Baron, fullmontyleadership.com. Till next time, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious.